Welcome to episode 35 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. If you want to grow, scale, get out of the junk removal world in the waste industry, this is the place to be. As always, I'm joined by my good friend Casey Bubba Lawrence with a fresh fade down in the great state of Texas. Casey, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to talk about all kinds of good stuff with our guest, Dino Antonopoulos.
Nailed it.
And he is an attorney, so this is going to be real interesting. The people out there, I'm sure, are going to have a lot of questions after this. So we're going to ask some now that we can think of. And Dino, maybe you can correct me when I'm wrong or if I'm wrong, but are you the attorney that gets people out of trouble, or are you preventing the trouble?
It's a great way
you ask.
That is correct.
It's a good question.
So, it's a great question.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to think that we're ahead of the curve and we keep people out of trouble.
Cool.
So full transparency, Dino is my lawyer. I contacted him when I wanted to get out of a shit situation, to which he said, "Why did you sign this garbage in the first place?" And then I said,
"Why are you in the situation?"
Yeah, why are we here today? Right? So let's talk about that, Dino. So I got the dirty half dozen, right? I talked about the dirty half dozen. A couple weeks back, we had our insurance guy, Eric, on. Dino's met Eric. So Dino's been my lawyer for 3 or 4 years now. He's part of my board of advisors. That's my dirty half dozen, right? So I talk dirty half dozen. It's your lawyer, your accountant, your banker, financial advisor, CPA, and your bookkeeper. And those are 6 distinctly different people that have different roles within you, and their job is to protect you. As much as they are trying to hawk you stuff at networking events, I've realized over the last 6 years of doing this full time, they're absolutely necessary. Because, to Casey's point, in my experience, and Dino, I want to hear your thoughts on this, it is less expensive to get a lawyer before you sign a contract or before you do something than it is after the fact. Is that accurate to say, Dino?
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, sometimes when clients put their name on contracts and don't know the meanings of certain terms, and you find yourself either fighting to get out of that contract, or sometimes you're in litigation, and that's really expensive if you go down that road.
So, and the other thing I love about Dino is, you can speak to this, Dino. You got out of law school, you went and worked for a big firm, and you basically said one day, right after your twins were born, if I recall correctly, like, screw this, I'm either going to get a new profession or I'm doing this on my own. Is that fair?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah. So I had a presentation, I think, a couple weeks ago. You were at it, Andy. And, for the first 10 years of my career, I was with a couple of mid-sized firms, about 15 to 20 lawyers, and then decided 10 years ago to start my firm because I was done with the BS. There's a certain way that we try to represent our clients and have relationships with our clients. It's more than just pen to paper. It's not about the dollars. It's about doing things the right way, protecting people the right way, helping you guys achieve your goals, and we're along for that ride. I mean, we're part of the team, as Andy said.
Yeah. I called Dino during a tough time. And what I enjoyed about the relationship I have with Dino is his way of entrepreneurship is similar to mine. And that's one of the things I'm going to say right off the bat. Not every lawyer, banker, insurance guy is going to be the right fit, guy or girl. It's going to be the right fit for you. You got to find someone that complements your strengths. We talk a lot about what your strengths are. So, for example, I like to talk things out. I like to shoot from the hip. Dino is the opposite. He'll ask a lot of questions. And he's one that won't give me the answers I want right away because he wants to explore what options we have available, dig into what the law says, and also, practicality, what will actually work in the real life. So I always recommend, I'll never be one that says, hey, I got the best team and you should use my exact team. No, you got to find your dream team. Mm-hmm. And what I like about Dino is the fact that he worked for the big corporations. I did too. I've worked for WM. I was with the franchise organization. That's when I called Dino. I was in a really shit spot when I signed with the franchise, and Dino navigated those waters for me because it was a quality of life thing. And had I gone to Dino in the first place, there's a good chance I would have never signed the franchise agreement in the first place. And right, you're never gonna coulda, woulda, shoulda. But
I think you may have still signed because your head was in a different spot.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
You would have signed with different conditions in your head. You would have asked different questions going into the gate.
I was very naive. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I would not have been as naive.
Yeah,
I trusted them.
Right, and that's the thing is most people that we found, you and I, that actually talked to them, most people had a good head on their shoulders. They just didn't know what to look for going in. It was always after the fact, right? They were reacting instead of being proactive. So they were kind of like, look, like at this point, I'm in this fucking hole and I should have known better. Well, yes and no, because we all should have known better, but we didn't know what we didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other part is that, look, part of our job, though, is to make sure you know what, let's say, that contract says. And that doesn't mean that we're going to get our way in every term of that contract, okay? So if I come to Andy and I'm like, hey, look, this is what the agreement says. These are our risks. These are our liabilities, potentially our exposure to it. Well, Andy's got to make a business decision at that point. So if you rewind back when, he was doing the franchising at that point in time, as long as he was aware of those, and maybe we negotiate some of those terms out and some of those terms change, but he accepts certain other terms. But he knows that going in. He knows the game that we're playing at this point, and he goes in eyes wide open. That's a big difference. When we pick up new business clients, let's say, and there are issues with their contracts or things like that, they're almost blind to it, that they weren't aware of it sometimes. And it's the devil you know and the devil you don't know. But we, from a business standpoint, though, you take a strategic approach that we want to be 5 steps ahead, whether it's good, bad. Right now, we know the pitfalls. We know how to get around those pitfalls. And that's what makes the businesses successful, because you're going to have your ebbs and flows. You're going to have issues that are going to pop up. It's how we navigate through them.
Do you specialize in franchising, Dino, or you have a business special? How does that work?
Yeah, so from the business standpoint, we represent closely held companies.
Okay.
So we look at who owns those companies, because it's about that relationship first and foremost. So we try to match up and make sure that those core values of what we have align with our business clients. So that's first and foremost what we look at. And we're across the range on what type of companies we represent. So we do represent some franchisors, and then we do represent franchisees as well. So we're in that world. We represent manufacturing companies, dealerships, retailers, contractors. So it just goes to the people.
So if I were to start a business, junk removal or not, and I come to you and I'm like, hey, Dino, I want to start a business, but I really am afraid of contracts or whatever, right? I'm starting with this partner, or I'm starting with a franchise or licensing company or licensing agreement. I mean, is that your realm? I mean, can they come to you, or is it more of, do they have to have an established business first?
No, it's either one.
Okay.
Our end of it. What's exciting is when you do take on a new client, like from my end, very rewarding is that an individual starting a new company is going to try to fulfill his or her dream, whatever that is. And we're starting from the ground up. And that's cool, because you get in from the ground up, and then, when they succeed, it's awesome to see. Like I said, it's like a lot of our clients become like family to us.
Because I know
we don't take some other clients where they're established, where we have a client that's, give or take 80 to 100 million in sales. And we took that company on as a client and very successful, but we're helping them take it to the next level. We're helping protect everything that they built.
Yeah, because I know you've said this before. Well, we've actually talked before, but also I've heard other people say this, insurance and also other attorneys. We live in a very litigious society, right? Like everybody, it seems, is out to get that lawsuit going to make that extra dollar, right? Like, hey, I'm going to take this person to court because they pissed me off or whatever. And I feel like when you're in an industry that you're very high risk, I think junk removal is a higher risk than some other ones, because you're always constantly moving and you're going to be in traffic. Different people are driving your vehicles. Your brand is everywhere, which is good and bad, because that litigious person could be like, hey, this guy knocked my mailbox over. I'm fearing for my life. He's going to blow up my house or something. And I feel like a lot of times people are afraid to brand themselves, in a sense, because they don't want people to try to sue them. And I've talked to many business owners before that have actually told me, like, well, I don't want to brand myself too loud because that's just asking for a lawsuit. I'm like, it's only ask for a lawsuit if you're doing the wrong thing. You know, I don't think you should operate with that fear. And I encourage everybody to talk to an attorney. Talking's free.
Well,
go and talk to an attorney at least first. Right.
Well, I mean, I say talking for the first little bit of attorney is free, right? Dino was good enough, like, but right. And here's the deal, like when I hear attorney's fees, right, $250, $300, like I remember very early on, like thankfully I have an uncle who's a lawyer, and he did the very basics. He did my LLC formation, articles of incorporation, and like things like I don't know, like I don't give a shit, right? But then you try to you go out and get government contracts, or even Casey, you and I faced this when we were down at Military Influencers Conference. Just to apply for a pitch competition, they're like, "Hey, you need articles of incorporation," and I was like, "I'm just pitching," but there was a cash prize. They want to make sure you have a legitimate business. So I can't stress enough. We have our listeners here are everyone from, hey, I do a little side junk removal, to I have a 4 or 5 truck operation that I do over $1 million in business. What my recommendation is simple. Now that I've paid legal fees beforehand and afterwards, or pay the man, right? Yeah. Pay someone smarter than you. This is. I just thought about this when you were talking a second ago, Dino. This is my new mantra. I think I'm going to go with, which is entrepreneurship is risky. Don't risk the on the business stuff. Don't risk the insurance. Don't risk the legal. Don't risk your CPA and your financials and your tax planning. Don't risk that. Take risk when it comes to marketing, sales, operations, jobs. Take all your risk there, because you don't want to risk not having insurance. You don't want to risk signing a contract that was bad. I know I had a large national company wanted to work with me earlier this year. They said, hey, it was going to be a 60-day test run. I sent the contract to Dino and his team, and it's like, yeah, this doesn't look great. Like, these terms are not in your favor. So we went back and forth. We went back and forth 4 times, to a point where one of the guys on Dino's team, who specializes in contracts, he goes, hey, man, you're going to end up spending more money on lawyers than this contract is worth for a 60-day test. Like, it's not worth my time to keep dealing with this. And that's what stuck in my head. Then once I started working with this company, they were extremely difficult to work with. Well, then my lawyer already tipped me off by saying, hey, this is not typical for a 60-day test run to be this difficult. We signed a $10,000 job today that was like, yep, this is the bid, sounds good. Where's your COI, certificate of liability insurance? We're good. These are the expectations, right? So it's like, I spent all this money to sign a 60-day contract that was only worth $12,000, $15,000, and I have other jobs where it's 2 emails and it's a $10,000 job.
Well, and the naive Andy and the naive junk guy would have grabbed that opportunity because it's shiny, it's big, it's
and they would have signed the contract, but the first thing something went south, they lost their money. We saw that in franchise world. There was these guys that were focused on this revenue, like, oh, I got a $5,000, $7,000 deal. And it's like, well, A, what's the risk, and B, how much money do you make on it? Because if you're A, losing money, or B, it's high risk. I joke, but I'm being kind of serious. I don't like working for lawyers. I have worked for lawyers and done jobs for lawyers that are very particular about stuff. And same reason I don't move anymore. We used to move. Yeah. We moved a lawyer's office that was so particular when it was all said and done, and like threw the book at me, basically. And I went backwards on the gig. And I'm like, you know what? We're done moving, because he knew the law and I didn't.
Well, yeah, we had a lot of that happen with doctors' offices and stuff where there's sensitive material. Hey, we have to move files, and you can't take any pictures in here. And the minute one of your guys pulls out a phone, they're like, "Hey, no, y'all are gone. Like, you can't do that." It's like, I was texting my lady or whatever. It's like, no, you can't have phones here. And there are things that you find out after the fact, but there's a reason. And it's simple as having someone. Now, I also tell people, like, just because you have an attorney in your phone doesn't mean you have to sign a year retainer. Like, oh, they're $100,000. They'll walk you through what you can have them, do for you. They don't have to do all or nothing. They could be, hey, let's do a monthly retainer of X, Y, and Z. I actually did. It was Andy Nelson, trademark attorney, right? He did some work for me, and I paid him a retainer. And it was funny. I got an invoice from him like a year later, a random invoice. It was like for $70. And I was like, what the hell is this for? And it was paid from my retainer. But I was like, I was confused. So I remember calling. I was talking at the conference, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I probably just opened an email, and I don't know." And I'm like, "Oh, you open an email and just like charge them." And I was like, "Thanks, Andy." Obviously, he was joking, but he explained everything to me. He goes, like, if it takes up some of my time and I'm having to actually like do stuff, then yeah, you'll see an invoice for something going into your retainer or whatever. It's just ask questions, right?
Well, the other thing with lawyers, right? I joke about this, right? It's not a monogamous relationship with your lawyer. Right? It's not. You have different lawyers for different things. So I have a lawyer. I've gone through a divorce, and like, so I joke. I do networking events with young guns, and often I have 1 or 2 lawyers in the room. Right? I have 4 lawyers right now I can think of that I work with. I got a lawyer for family law. I got Dino for general business. Andy Nelson did trademark work for me. And I have a lawyer that specializes in employment law that I've worked with in the past. Right? And depending on what the situation is, I go to the right person.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dino knew about that. Now I'm telling Dino about my other lawyers. He knew about my family law lawyer.
I'm just saying, I'm going to be moving spots eventually here in the next few months. So you're not going to move me out here?
I'm not doing moving. I don't move lawyers. We'll put that on our branding. You know what? The other one, it was a lawyer and a chiropractor. So to Casey's point about doctors, it was a lawyer and a chiropractor within like 3 months of each other. I got my ass handed to me because we broke some like $4,000 table. Turns out we didn't break it. No. Here's what happened. We moved it. They went to go put it back together, and they put it back together wrong. And they're like, oh, and they're going to sue me for like $10,000 and for the lost labor and all this other stuff. And I don't think Dino, you were my attorney at the time. I basically ignored them. I'm like, hey, tell you what, we moved it from point A to point B. You sent me a check saying the job was done. That ain't on. But I much rather would have been called, not doing the job in the first place, knowing the liability I was taking on, or having to sign contract. So they signed a contract where my liability was gone for a specialty item. It wasn't that we destroyed it. And actually, all we did is move it within the same building from one suite to another. Yeah, we would have taken it apart.
What's tough though, guys, is that to Andy's point earlier that I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I will say that the new businesses that come to us or want to start a business and they don't get that legal representation, they don't get the accountant on board, they don't get the bank on board, typically there's a trend that they fail. Because they don't put the people around them. Now, the flip of it is that we can all appreciate this, is that those are hard expenses though. So you got legal fees, those are going out the door. So people are in a tough spot there of saying, okay, I would like to get representation. I'd like to have all these people, but there's a cost to it all. And that's the risk that they take though, of saying, I don't have either the funds or I don't want to spend the funds right now because I have so many other avenues I got to allocate funds to. And it's a tough decision that some people make. And what I've seen though in 20 years is typically that doesn't work out very well.
Well, and this is the thing. If so, like, okay, one of the questions I was going to ask, a lot of times junk removal guys, girls, whatever, maybe they get stiffed on a check, right? They don't get paid or whatever. They put themselves in a position to where they're not in control of their job and they get stiffed. They are like, oh, I'm going to take the small claims. I personally, at least in the state of Texas, small claims court is not worth it unless it is worth it. Like, be prepared to take a long ride. I've always heard that from a lot of contractors here. They're like, look, if you're going to do that, go that route. Make sure you're prepared because you're going to be putting in some money and some time that you may not be getting back on the flip side. Now, starting out, we take a risk. Hey, I'm starting out. All I have is $10,000 to my name, and I bought a trailer, a truck, whatever. I can't afford an attorney. To your point, yes, you have hard costs, but also in every entrepreneur out there, there's always risks associated with what you're doing with your business. You have to think of those going in the gate, right? So for those that have already started, yes, we get it. But for those that maybe are thinking about it, this is your time to prepare for some of those hard costs, right? Like, talk to an attorney. Hey, how much is it going to cost, Dino, if I want you on the phone once a month, or if I need you in my back pocket? Like, what's that look like on paper?
Yeah, for sure.
And what it is it reminds me of people that start their junk removal business and they are, guyandtruck@gmail.com.
Yes.
Right. And I'm like, hey, why don't you have a website with your own URL? Right. So you're not like Casey at VetWorks or, me, A Weins at Green Up Solutions. It's the same thing. How much are you willing to invest? I look at the cost of legal fees as an investment. I'm investing in my future so that I can perform work because I'm going to have employees. I'm going to have customers, right? And as soon as you involve people, it gets fickle, right? You're going to have equipment. You're going to have machinery. You're going to have leases. You have all these things that need a second perspective. And chances are, the other person that's on your internal team doesn't know that much, right? Like that's it. So, Dino, what have you seen have been people's apprehension to getting a lawyer involved in some of those more simple conversations?
Either ignorance or cost. Like it's one of those two usually that they don't know what to ask or what to look for usually. Yeah. So when you talk about that guy or gal that's starting a junk removal business and they're using their Gmail account and kind of just taking it on the fly. I mean, that's one of the first conversations that we have with somebody that wants to start a business, because just because they want to start a business doesn't mean they know how to start the business. And, there's a reason why we're forming corporations or limited liability companies. And that's to shield liability from the actual individuals that own the company. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't take the necessary steps to, let's say, properly capitalize the company, if we don't take the necessary steps to separate ourselves from the company, that's when it becomes problematic. And when there's an issue and we want to go after, let's say, Andy personally, okay, we're going to find a way to attack Andy personally, even though he has XLLC right now. The terminology is you can't commingle your assets. So it's not like I'm going to just use the company credit card to buy this and that for myself. I'm going to mix in my business finances with our personal finances. The more you commingle, the more you're just opening yourself up. So separate bank account, separate email account. Everything is always separate with the company.
No, and that, and full transparency, I started my junk removal hustle back in 2009. I didn't sign a real contract or even do it full time until 16, and I didn't call Dino until 19. So I want to make it very clear to all of our listeners here. When we do this podcast, this is, in my case, 13 years of experience coming at you. This isn't, if I do it all over again, I'd spend $10,000 in lawyers day one. No, I didn't have $10,000, right? I did it. So I get the shoes you're in, but I also know that I've paid for a few rounds of golf for Dino getting out of a bad franchise agreement. And the first thing he said is, hey, why don't you call me in the first place? And that's that, for me, it's like, it's like if you don't have money to put gas in your car, you can't buy it. Same thing here with your business. If you don't have the funds to protect your business, then you need more funds, or you need more time, or you need a smaller business, or there's it's a simple math equation. Something and it can't just give. You can't be like, well, something's got to give. Well, not having a lawyer shouldn't be the thing that gives.
Well, and I think a lot of it also, Andy, is, and I'm sure Dino can talk on this, I think a lot of people their first thought of an attorney is, man, they're just going to try to get everything out of me, and they don't care about me. But I think, all right, and like I said, Dino, you can step into this. I feel that a good attorney wants that customer-client relationship ongoing. They want to be like, look, I want you to trust me. I want to keep you out of trouble, but I also want you to realize you can trust me as well. And I don't want to just scare you off the first chance I get by, hey, here's 10 grand just because of the conversation we had. And I feel like a lot of people stray away from having those conversations with attorneys because of that. They think attorneys don't give a shit. They're just going to come in, get their money, tell me some good advice, and then charge them for the next one. All they count the minutes and the dollars. That's it.
Yeah, the problem is, Casey, that some of the stigmas are real, though. Okay, you're gonna get
anything else though. You got your bad, the good.
Yeah, you're gonna get your handful of attorneys that do chase the dollar sign and all that. It's up to you as the business owner to vet that out. So when I meet somebody, look, we only pick up new clients through referrals. That's the only way we'll pick up a new client is if they're referred to us. And then that way I know it's a trusted source, and that's where we start. But I've been in this game for 20 years, and I've been kind of running it that way. It's worked out well for me on that end of it because, like I said, that relationship is built over time. But so when you are interviewing the attorney to find out kind of the relationship and all that stuff, you have to figure out the baseline of that trust. And it's a two-way street. So as much as they're interviewing me, I'm interviewing them as well to see if we're a match to go forward. We all the time, and you're not going to, let's say we have a great start to the relationship. Well, you don't know me from Johnny down the road. So over time, I have to gain your trust. And to your point, like our job is to protect our client, not to chase the dollars. What I always tell everyone is like, money takes care of itself. Like if you chase it, if I chased it, Andy would have seen right through it. He'd be like, you know what, you're no different than any other lawyer that I've worked with in the past. Like I'm going to move on. And so you try to do right by your clients, and that's what rewards us here by doing right. Sometimes Andy may not like what I say. Sometimes it goes against what he's trying to do, and he'll make the decision there. I had a client yesterday that wanted to pursue a lawsuit on some commercial properties. And I'm like, listen, we're going down a road of spending good money over bad, without any assurance that we're going to get a return. And
trade good or bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And that conversation happens more often than not when we start to look at the litigation side of an issue in our firm, because I want to make sure that the client sees the whole thing. Now, I had a client 2 weeks ago that said, I don't give a shit. Like, file the lawsuit. I get it. Like, I'm gonna lose more than I'm gonna gain here, but I still want you to file the lawsuit and go after it.
So what do you mean by good over bad? You spend more than what it's worth?
Yeah. So whatever we're trying to chase down. Okay, let's just say it's a simple receivable that we do a job and we don't get paid, and we're owed like $5,000. And the question is, do we chase that $5,000, whether it's in small claims, right? That Casey was saying earlier, do we chase that? What's it worth? And,
we could very well spend 15 grand trying to get $5.
You could, or we can be efficient and just go get we say, okay, we're going to go file this lawsuit and we're going to try to hopefully get a judgment right away because they may not answer. And we're going to stick a judgment on them. And that way they have at least a headache to deal with. Doesn't mean we have to go in and enforce the judgment, but we're going to go at it. Now, there's other times where, if we're chasing a receivable, do we want to invest the money? Do we think it's collectible? Can we get that money out of them? Those are all factors. So if we're owed $5,000 and it's going to cost another $3,000 to $4,000 in legal fees to chase, well, that's the good money over bad right now. Okay, what are we netting? Or if we reach out, we send a demand letter out to so-and-so and we say, hey, pay us the $5,000. They come back and say, well, I can pay you $2,000. Are we willing to take $2,000 to $3,000 and just sell it out? Or are we chasing for $5,000, even though it's going to cost $2,000 against legal fees, and you're already down to $3,000 anyway? So we look at that scenario. What's the most cost-effective approach to take? But like I said, you have some other clients that are saying, I don't give a shit on the cost. Like, we're going to go into it for other reasons of why we're doing this. Right, wrong, and different.
So this is a question in our industry. So what recommendations do you have for those of us that, take cash, take credit card payments, or invoice customers? Really, those are your four options at the end of a transaction. What recommendations do you have for those that are working with commercial and residential customers, in a blue-collar service-based industry? What do you see is the trend so that you don't find yourself in a position where someone owes you money with no repercussion?
Yeah. If you can get advance payment, that always works the best, right? We don't have to take the risk at that point that we're getting paid in advance. If we don't have that structure, we have maybe a 50% down up front, and then the remaining 50% paid on completion of the job. Then you have to build in certain terms that incentivize that customer to pay. So having an interest accruing under your terms and conditions, you want to make sure that if legal fees are being incurred on behalf of the company, that we can pursue the customer for reimbursement of that. Like, we just use that scenario. If it's going to cost us $2,000 to chase 5, can we tack that $2,000 on to the 5 and make it 7 now that they owe us?
Yeah, no, I think when I called you about that years ago, there was a big project we did, and they owed us about $10,000 at the end, and they held on to it, unbeknownst to us, for almost 6 months because they had to wait till they got cleared from their customer to hold. It was a demo job, and GCs a lot of times will hold the last 10% for punch list. But I'm like, it was a demo job. Our punch list was done before you guys started doing mechanicals. I don't need the paint colors and to be approved or whatever, the last of the trim to be done for you to bless off on me. Like, you're being held 10%.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And that was my challenge. I remember I said, well, I'm going to charge them interest. And first thing lawyer said was, well, did you set that expectation from the beginning? And I go, no. Well, they're like, well, then you have nothing here. Right.
Yeah. And I think,
and if you just have net 30 and they don't pay you after net 30, but you don't tell them what happens, you're setting yourself up for failure. Is that fair to say, Dino? I mean, if you don't detail out what happens after 30 days, your net 30 means nothing because there's no repercussion.
You guys are in a service industry, and you should have some sort of terms and conditions attached to your proposals, to your agreements. There should be some sort of terms and conditions that spell that out. Okay? Whether it's collection of attorney's fees, interest, you got to add that stuff in there to make sure that if you are in a predicament where you're chasing a receivable, that at least there's some repercussions on that customer.
Okay, so this is I'll take some, Dino's not charging me for this hour on the podcast, so I'll give you a scenario. Where a customer reach out to us, it's an insurance liability claim. They got a bunch of damaged product in a warehouse. This is that job we just landed today. It's about $10,000 opportunity, right? So that's not, that's a decent amount of money, right? So typically we just send them our quote. They approve it. We got the emails back and forth, and we don't set any expectations on financing or terms. It's due upon receipt. So we'll send our certificate of liability insurance, our W-9. At that point, it's a commercial account. I mean, should we be sending them another piece of paper? We essentially have the quote, the certificate of liability insurance, the W-9. Should we send them another document that states out our financing terms and what happens if they don't pay us in a timely manner?
Yeah, I mean, your quote can have a terms and conditions attached sheet
built in,
and it'll be a separate page, just your standard terms and conditions. Your quote, your proposal has all the details of the job, the pricing, and all that, and then you have your terms and conditions attached to it.
Do I have one of those, Dino?
I learned.
Dino, can you whip one up in the next 20 minutes?
There you
while
go.
We're sitting here.
So I learned.
No,
but
seriously, this is
that big job I did because y'all don't have bonds up in Wisconsin.
No. Can you explain what a bond is, Dino? I have no clue what this shit is that they talk about down south.
I had to get a payment and performance bond because 10% of the job was actually being covered by the city we were doing business in, which then triggered their requirement for a bond, and it was a payment and performance bond. And my understanding, which what I was told from my insurance guy who sold me the bond, he goes, it's to make sure that the people that are the subs all get paid. And that way, if they don't get paid by me, the bond pays them. And then instead of the city coming after me, that third party comes after me for the money owed. And, that was something that we were very new to. We were a small business, so it was very difficult to get this. They had to dig in deep. I mean, personal finance, you name it. It was a really big job. So we learned a lot as we went. We ended up getting it, obviously, and then we ended up doing the job. But I didn't get the last 10% of that job until 90 days later because the city held on to it for 90 days after completion.
It's basically insurance.
Yeah.
Like you're paying to cover your performance, the job, financials, and all that it's a source of funds to cover whatever that is that they want you to bond it right now.
It was like 2%, I think, or 3% of the quote. They went off
and you got to pay for it. You got to pay for the bond.
Front.
Yep. You got to pay for it all, but it's just a source of funds to cover.
Mm-hmm.
If something goes sideways.
So
how
a
does that
bond
work?
is like it's insurance on your on that you're going to do the job and you're going to get paid.
It's insurance that the job gets done and everybody else gets paid.
There's different types of bonds. So construction bonds, you name it, and it could be that subs. It's going to cover all subs that if they don't get paid, the bond's going to pay them out. Performance, all that stuff. It'll cover various things. It just depends on what the contract calls for what type of bond they're looking for. But it's just allocating a source of funds to cover your performance of the job, any failures you may have on that job, any breaches that you have under your contract.
So how does that work up in Wisconsin where they don't have bonds? How do they enforce that kind of thing, or do they?
Well, there's bonds up in Wisconsin. It just depends what they're for too. It depends what the job is. It depends what the terms of the contract are. Who's calling for it. It depends on the size of the contract, the complexity of it.
I thought we just didn't have bonds. I know we don't have bail. I know we don't have bail bondsmen. I know that. I know we can't. I can't be dogged a bounty hunter. Maybe that's more bounties than bonds.
Well, I know that for us, it was very difficult because, like I said, we were a small business, and the job that we were doing was over $250,000, and they wanted us to pay a percentage of that up front to cover shit. And we're like, like on the backside, we're like, look, we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost to the T. Like this is something that we did our best on, and we're going to do it, and we're going to make some money, hopefully, and it doesn't go south. But on the other hand, we're like, well, shit, that's a lot of money to cover up front before we even get the job, right? But it was a requirement, and we had to do a lot of fishing. We didn't know who to call at first. We went Google, then called some insurance companies. Finally, we got to someone through our insurance guy. He connected us with someone who specializes in bonds, and it was complete news to us. So, I'm not sure. Do you have experience dealing with bonds at all, or how does that work from the attorney side?
We do. Our experience comes in with negotiating the terms of that bond provision in a contract. Now, to Andy's point of his trusted advisors, when you have that bond provision that you're being presented with a requirement of having a bond on the job, your two calls are going to come to the legal side to talk it through and actually like how the term is going to be written, but then also the insurance guy or gal too, to say, okay, look, I'm being required of this right now. How do I go about this? Who do I call? What do I do? And then having him or her help you out to give you that source to say, okay, try these companies. These are bonding companies. Reach out to them and apply for it and see what we can do. That's where that advisors come in on there. And you have to work as a team though, too. Like I typically work so much with the accountants, that if we make a move on the legal end, I want to make sure that from a tax end, it makes standpoint too. It makes sense on that side of it as well, because they go hand in hand. Like we might be looking at it only from the legal, and then we got to make sure from the tax end of it, it makes sense. Same thing on the insurance side. Like all of it, it goes hand in hand for the businesses.
No, I'm glad you brought that point up. So I remember this was a couple of years back. Eric, my insurance agent, who was on here a couple of weeks ago, and now Dino, we were doing our meeting. We have one every December. We got one coming up here in a few weeks. I call it the meeting of the minds, but really it's my board of advisors. We meet once a year. My goal is to sit down with them quarterly. Dino and I have lunch, or we catch up quarterly, if not more often than that. Just touch points, right? I want to let him know what's going on in my business. I don't want to wait till there's a problem. So he right. So because he hears me signing a $10,000 contract different than I say I'm signing a $10,000 contract, right? He's hearing different things or seeing different things. Yeah. But anyways, this a couple of years ago, we had our, my insurance guy, my CPA, Dina was there, a couple other people. And at one point there was a pissing match basically between my insurance guy, who's a Marine, go figure, right? Dino, who's Greek, go figure, right? and the whole time, my CPA, who's a buddy,
the Marines, they just hate.
Oh my God, dude, they're so like they were having this like loud pissing match, and afterwards, it's like other people like, were they yelling at each other? I'm like, no, they were just talking. It's just how they talk, right? They talk with with volume and hands and swears. Like, that's just how they talk. But and then my CPA, Lucas Bagan's the guy I went to Iraq with. He's the most chill dude ever. And finally, like, they had their little dust up across the table, and I looked at Bagan and I go, "So where do you weigh in?" He goes, "Well, I can see it from both perspectives. Dino's right here, and Eric's right here, but the tax implications are here." And then it was like he found the middle ground, and then Eric's like, "Yeah, I'm good with that," and Dino's like, "Yeah, that makes sense." It's like, okay, like there we go. We had all the people say the things, but from their perspective, it matters, right? Like, and again, that's even with us in junk removal. We're very, we see our perspective of the world because that's what we do for a living.
Yeah.
And it's not that Dino's right every time. It's not that my, lawyers or my insurance guy or my CPA is right every time. What's important is, you said it from the top, Dino, that the entrepreneur, the business owner, has enough information to make the best decision for his business. Because every day we step out, it's a risk, right? Whether you got a job and there's the fear of your company going under, right, through no fault of your own, or you're an entrepreneur and you're the one that shit the bed and made the company fail, it's a risk. But, we're not going to do this paralysis by analysis, which that was always my concern or fear. Because I have lawyers in my family, and for me, when I went to them with what I thought were simple questions, they never gave me a simple answer. And it's like, well, you can look at it this way, but this happens and this happens and then this. It's like, I just wanted a definite answer. I wanted to be like, what's your recommendation here? I got 3 courses of action. Just tell me which way to go, and that dog will hunt. Right? If you give me the who, what, when, where, how, why in every potential scenario, I'm gonna boggle my mind. So my challenge to you, Dino, and lawyers, and also to entrepreneurs, is find the lawyers that are going to go to fight for you. But at the end of the day, you got to make the decision. You, the entrepreneur, have to make the decision, right? They're going to fight for you. It might be fight with you because that's right. They got to tell you when you're wrong. Well, but you got to make a decision because at the end of the day, if you go under, right, you lose your house, the lawyer's just going to go get another client. And that's not a dick move. It's the truth.
How can I vet the best of my ability, obviously without going crazy, but how can I vet an attorney? I mean, if I were to go grab an attorney right now to start for anything, right? Like, obviously, Dino, you're Andy's attorney, but like, if this was brand new, I just listened to this podcast. Now I'm like, shit, I got to go find an attorney. What's the first step? I mean, do I just call the first name that pops up on Google, or what do you recommend as first step, other than, of course, calling you?
So you're down in Texas, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I would start asking, does your insurance guy or gal have somebody that they recommend?
Mm-hmm.
Does your banker have someone they recommend?
Start
from your core, whoever's part of your team right now that you can trust to give you some recommendations. And then you want to see, when you do reach out to whoever it is, you reach out, get a few names, you reach out to them. Who's going to take your call? Like, who's going to listen to you for a little bit and give you some time? Who's going to say, hey, let's meet up for a breakfast or lunch?
Yeah.
Typically, I will meet up for a breakfast or a lunch, get to know somebody because I want to hear about what they're doing. We'll have a 15-minute to 30-minute initial phone call. I just want to get the 30,000-foot view of what's happening first.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of going to take a little bit. We need to run our conflict checks usually to make sure that we're not conflicted out somehow. Mm-hmm. And then from there, if the conflict is clear, then I want to meet this person to get to know them. Obviously the pandemic kind of did a little twist there for a couple of years, but normal process is get to know them. So like Casey, you need to see who's going to respond to you, who's going to be excited to talk with you a little bit. I tell my guys here, my team is like, when you pick up a new client, you always should be humble and show gratitude. I'm doing this 20 years. And, I remember the first time I picked up a new client and how happy and excited I was that somebody believed in me and all that stuff. That should never change. That feeling should never change.
Yeah.
So you can feel the sense, I think, as an individual of saying, is this person like engaged with me? Mm-hmm. Are they listening to me? What's the vibe? You got to be screening them hard and compare, between talking with attorney A and attorney B and seeing what they're saying. Are they selling you a bag of shit, or are they being legit?
Yeah, and I think that's how you go about with any relationship. I mean, Andy and I had an episode strictly just on different tiers of relationships, and I think that's part of your investment, part of your investor side. I mean, that's something that you go in with the future in mind, not just the here and now. Like, honestly, I'd recommend getting an attorney, even if you don't have shit going on. Just go talk to someone. Get someone that is in your circle or has the potential of stepping in when needed. But that's how you build that foundation now. I'm not sure how you and Andy first met, if it was out of reaction. I think it was out of him reacting to shit that was going on. But I sure now he would be like, look, going forward, like, you know, if Dino ever retires or whatever, I'm going to make sure that I'm always covered by someone I trust and I can actually reach out to.
Yeah,
I think every business owner should.
We met in a business owners group and hit it off from there. And I saw him from a distance, and you hear Andy in the room and all that. I'm like, I like this guy. Like,
no way.
We weren't working together or anything like that. I think it took a while at all. I mean, like I said, I don't try to get in a room and pitch myself, because then I think people will think that that's not genuine. You know.
Yeah.
Andy and I hit it off, and eventually just naturally gravitated to that, to where we're at today. I mean, look, to be candid, I mean, I'd run through a wall for the guy. I mean, he's part of the inner circle. You know, no one screws with him, is kind of the attitude. And him and every other business client that we have, you know.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
It's not Huckleberry. It's Hucklebearer. Let's
Huckleberry.
No, you said Huckleberry. I'm going to break this down Barney style.
I'll be your Huckleberry too.
No, Jesus. All right, it's Hucklebearer, because that was the term. That was the term back in the Wild Wild West for a pallbearer. So what he says there is, "I'll be your Hucklebearer," which means I'll be your pallbearer. And then people took it as, "I'll be your Huckleberry," which makes no fucking sense.
Sure it does.
This is the most worked up. This is the most worked up I've been in a while. I don't even like. It's not even that good of a movie. People will probably kill me for that. I don't think Tombstone's that good of a movie.
You're breaking up. I'm losing.
I said it. This is the first time ever you actually did lose internet on one of our podcasts. You're making Taylor splice things up.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, where did we met at? Which business owners group was it? Was it the BOG, the business owners group? That's the name of it. It's called the BOG, the business owners group.
Either that one or the contractors group.
No, I got a different title for the episode. I'll be your Huckleberry is not the title of the episode. Taylor came in here. I'm actually writing the title of the episode. Here, Taylor, I was going to write it, but now that Taylor so rudely interrupted me, we have a production staff like Joe Rogan.
Ain't no barbecue sauce on that biscuit.
Yeah. A couple episodes ago, it was ain't no barbecue sauce on that biscuit. I love that.
That's all Taylor said the whole time. He just popped in to say it, and we're like,
dude, he kept saying it every 3 minutes. It was funny. All right, no, here it is. Is your attorney legit or selling you a bag of shit? That's the fucking title. That's it. Right? Is your attorney legit or selling you a bag of shit? There it is. There's your fucking title. Going back to Tombstone, not that good of a movie.
Oh,
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it.
A lot of people off. We just lost a lot of fans.
Dude,
just let everybody know, Andy's opinions do not represent the podcast as a whole. Okay, we apologize for his antics.
Actually, our fans, California is our number one state, probably because they got so many damn people. And then Texas is number 2. Wisconsin, not in the top 10.
What,
also, Pennsylvania's in the top 5. Philadelphia is our number 1 market. Which,
okay. So you're saying we should push more traction that way?
We should put, as Dino, you may know, our former customers. No, we were customers. Our former vendors. Yeah, we bought a name. The J-Dog. The J-Dog is from the greater Philadelphia area, which is our number one market in the country.
Yes.
So we're very thankful that there's a lot of franchisees out there taking in a lot of great content here in the Trash Talk Business Podcast, learning how to run their junk removal business better, free of charge.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is download on Spotify, Apple, whatever. That's like the most shameless plug I've ever done in 35 episodes. We're at the 49-minute mark. If you've already gone this far, you already know how to find us. This ain't your first fucking rodeo. This is true.
Well, we're coming to TikTok soon too, so it'll be fun.
We're ticking and talking.
We're gonna be ticking and talking.
Oh my god, I'm gonna TikTok to this so fucking hard.
Hey, you know what? Look, we didn't have time to talk about our last conference from last week from Vegas, but
Yeah, we didn't do a well. We won't do a. We went to a military influencers conference.
Yeah.
Dino.
Yeah,
Good. It was in Vegas. We stayed out of trouble.
I didn't get a call.
Yeah, you didn't get a call. That's correct. That's the less Dino knows, the better. We went to the Venetian one night.
Yep.
We walked over there. I did not like that casino. Way too
many
crowded.
people.
Too
Holy
many
shit.
people. God,
Wow.
so many people. I like a good atmosphere, but it was a lot of people. Most casinos are hard to navigate. That was the worst. And I'm a Vegas guy. I like Vegas.
The Resorts World Casino wasn't bad. It was fun.
No, I'm not going to lie. Resorts World on the north end of the strip, next time you go to Vegas, there's a good chance I stay there. We stay there because the conference was there. I'm not fucking bougie. Normally I stay off the strip. My buddy's got a timeshare, which means he made poor choices, didn't consult his lawyer first, because you should never buy a fucking timeshare. Let me tell you. My buddy Tyler Thompson, let me get him on the call. Anyways, normally we stay off the strip. We walk on, then we go to play the casinos. I like the Cromwell. It's kind of dirty, kind of dingy, kind of shitty. That's where I like to play in Vegas. I've played at the Bellagio and Caesars, way too expensive and fancy for me. But I will give a raging endorsement for Resorts World, the Hilton and the Conrad. They're these two casinos, like they make a weird V. You never have to leave the compound. You can you can go down to your hotel, hit the craps table, lose your money, walk past blackjack, make it back, go get a slice of pie, go up to the conference, and then do the and then leave the conference, go shopping, hit the tables again, because you got to walk by the tables.
Yeah,
I had to,
every time.
The T intersection from where I had to turn from the casino to my hotel room was the craps table, and you know what? Everyone has their kryptonite.
Did you have that breakfast sandwich over at, I forgot what, Yoke It Up or whatever it was called?
Buns out.
What's that? Yoke It Up.
Yeah, Buns Out. You got it.
Buns out.
Did you go there, Case?
No, we were going to, but we were at the Ari. We went to the Bellagio for brunch, my wife and I. So
Jesus.
Yeah, we were bougie for a minute, and dude, it was fucking worth it.
I went. Okay, I got to look up this place. I can't remember the name of the place, but I have stumbled in there a few times. So I will tell you, my favorite lunch place in Vegas is this deli that's right next to the convention center. It's I don't know. It's old kosher deli. It's phenomenal.
We had a good Venezuelan place.
That was the other thing. There's a Venezuelan place that we went to off the strip. Very good.
It was good. It's good. Affordable.
Yeah, I was like $20 and I ate so much food.
Everything.
All right, so there's this taco place. I got the map pulled up right now.
Tacos El Pastor.
Tacos El Pastor.
That was amazing. I've been there.
Have you been there? Dude, there's meat flying everywhere and it's fucking hot and sweaty in there. It's a fucking mess. I have no idea what I ordered. I'm like,
wait.
Hi,
the taco
white
place,
guy.
or was it like your spa day? Sounds like a spa day.
Jesus, easy.
Hot, sweaty meat flying everywhere.
You got to be careful what you order there, too. Because you can order like pig brain.
Yeah.
I had the beef tongue. Oh, absolutely, I had the beef tongue. It was so good. That was delicious.
It was like 11:30. He's like, "Hey, while you're shooting craps, I'll be back. I'm gonna get some tacos." And I wasn't hungry.
I was out of money. Then
he came back reeking of tacos, and I was like, "Fuck!"
They were so good. They were good tacos. He was so jealous. He was jealous of the taco. I got to find the deli. There was a really good deli. I've been to Vegas only a few times. The first time I went to Vegas,
that was my first time.
Yeah, so I went to Vegas in March of 2020, and we left as they were shutting down the NBA. So as far as I was concerned, I shut down Vegas. I made it happen. That's it. So I shut down Vegas, and then I've gone back a few times now for conventions. 72 hours. That's it. For anybody that can make it more than 72 hours in Vegas and have a good time, God bless them. That's the max.
Honestly, if it wasn't for the conference, we wouldn't have been there that long because there was just a lot to do. It's a lot to handle, man. We did a lot though. I mean, shit. Even with like that night when we walked to Venetian with you and stuff. But after that, we saw the fountains, and then the next day, hell, we went to Caesar's Palace, the Bellagio, just to see the different shit.
You like Vegas, Dino? Now that we're completely off topic, Dino also being very particular, texted me earlier, then called me. Was like, "Hey, what are we doing on the podcast?" I said, "Hop on 4.
This is what we do.
Press the button, and we just start talking."
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, what do I got to be prepared for?" I'm like, "To talk. That's what you That's what you need to be prepared for." I think it's Siegel's. Let me see. Oh, I just lost it. I think it's Siegel's Bagel Mania I think that's the name of the joint.
So my wife and I went last year for the first time over to Vegas,
Oh, yeah.
and we stayed
I did know that.
We stayed at Resorts World. We went for the Carrie Underwood.
You did.
There you go.
And,
I wouldn't admit
we were
that out loud
introduced. We were
if I was
introduced
you.
to absinthe. I didn't know that absinthe was a liquor because there was a show called Absinthe. So I got a drink called Absinthe. Let's
yeah.
just say I needed a few sandwiches the next day to kind of recover, and my wife wasn't so hot either. We couldn't figure out why until somebody finally told us what absinthe does. So
it jacks you up. Oh yeah. Back in the turn of the century, it's a French liqueur that'll just mess up your world.
Yes.
I think you told me that story too. Second, I would not admit to that whole
What, Carrie Underwood?
Underwood.
Dude, I'd admit that. Why do you think half the people
No
watch
shame.
Sunday Night Football?
no shame.
They don't watch the football. They watch the concert before. They're like, all right, we're done. Cool. Intro's done. I can go back to doing what I was doing.
She's the only one that did something after American Idol.
Yeah.
Like Kelly Clarkson's still around. The only thing I know about her was when Steve Carell in 40-Year-Old Virgin was getting the hair ripped off his chest. He's like, Kelly Clarkson.
Oh, yeah.
Also, that was an actress. The woman that was ripping the hair off his chest, that was an actress. She never waxed somebody before. So
It doesn't take much talent, does it, to rip the hair off his chest?
No, but that's the best part. The way that she was responding and the way that he was reacting, 100% legit. And Steve Carell, there's a good interview he talks about it. He went home to his wife, and she didn't know what was going on that day. And Steve Carell was not big. This is season 1 of The Office, had just been coming out. Steve Carell
he was
like
nothing.
He was nobody, and he comes home and he has these patches out of his chest. And he's a hairy dude. Dude, show business. He earned it. You know what? I don't care how much he earned that day. He earned it that day. He put the work in that day. No. All right.
We did
carry
get
on to work.
To Rob Riggle's story, too, at that conference.
Rob Riggle did a Q&A, a fireside chat. He was cool. Dan Crenshaw was there. And then Casey, after the Venetian, I went back to my hotel, lost my ass at the craps table. Because, you got to donate it back to Vegas. And then ran into David Blaine, the magician. And I talked to him for like 2-3 minutes. The guy was really nice. He was a very, I recognized him right away because back in the late 90s, before we had YouTube, right, we would watch David Blaine videos. PBS. Yeah, he would watch David Blaine, watching, this, he'd be walking the streets of, some random
freaking people
developing
out.
nation and just blowing people's minds with card tricks. That was the entertainment for you millennials out there. There was a time without YouTube. You basically sat around and quoted the Big Lebowski and Chappelle Show and watched David Blaine. That was a solid night. That was a good ass night. When you were deployed, that's the kind of shit we would watch. Remember that?
Yes.
See?
The Chappelle show, oh man.
Dude, life is fucking complicated now.
Yeah, what did you talk about in school? Well, that's right there. That's the quotes we would do. And what's crazy about David Blaine, I still remember him, write your name on this card, lights it on fire, and burns it into his own skin. You're like, what the
fuck? So he performs right there. He performs right there at Resorts World.
Yeah.
So he was just going back to the elevator. He had his team there. And I totally was like, that's David Blaine. I just stood there for 2-3 minutes. He was talking to people, and he looked right at me, and I was like, hey, man. I was like, you got him? And he's like, yeah, what's going on? I was like, and I told him, I was like, man, back in the day, we used to, I used to watch all your specials. It's awesome. And you're just hanging out. He's like, yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for supporting me. I don't know what that guy's done since he froze himself in New York, or he stuck himself in an ice cube, or he held his breath.
Something.
He
was the first person to pull a Han Solo. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For 30 years.
But legit nice guy. I saw Dan Crenshaw. I'll be the first to break the news. I'll say it. I saw Dan Crenshaw threaten to kick somebody's ass. Me to the monitor. Wait, Casey was away at the time. There was a situation between a fucking Marine and Crenshaw, who's a SEAL, that turned into a conversation where basically, you guys want to, the classic, hey, not here, not now, but if you want to fucking throw down, let's go. Yeah. And I was like, for being a military guy, oh my God, how do I vote for you? Can I move to the 2nd District of Texas and vote for you? Because I would like to do that right now. Can I exercise that right? Anyways, Dan Crenshaw, if anyone thinks he's not a fucking baller as fuck, firsthand. I always thought he was gangster. I always was like, yep, that's our guy for military. A lot of our listeners are military. Those dudes that aren't also, like, Dan Crenshaw is still the man. If you want someone that's going to shake things up in politics, party aside, the guy doesn't give a fuck. And that's who I want to vote for. Like, who doesn't fucking care? That's the person I want representing me. This fucking podcast nosedived. I don't know where we were going.
We went to Vegas. We just summed it up in like 3 minutes.
There we go. That was the Military Influencers Conference. There we go. Bonus episode with Dino. Dino's just sitting back like these guys. All right, here's what I will say. Here's the parallel I will drive now. Here's a parallel I will put out there in compared to Dino. This is the other thing I love about Dino. I have had a few people that have been like, hey, you seem like a guy that needs a good lawyer. Facts, right? And one in particular, this woman, she was in a rental situation. Her husband called me. I've known him for years. He's like, hey, man, I'm calling you because I'm kind of desperate. He goes, you seem like a guy that needs, has a good lawyer. And I was like, yeah, let me send you Dino's number. He goes, your lawyer's name is Dino? I go, yeah. He goes, of course it is. So I sent it over. And he says in my phone as Dino. I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce his last name. So this is my phone as Dino. Like 2 days later, I get a text message. She's like, I don't know who Dino is. I don't know what he did, but the problem's solved. My wife's happy. I'm like, exactly. So the point of Crenshaw, right? For me, right, my measure of a good person on my board of advisors is someone that's willing to jump in the foxhole with me, sling some fucking lead, punch people in the face. Dino also hung up on the chairman of the board of the former business partnership I was involved in. And like their first conversation was like, oh, this is going nowhere? Sounds good. Fucking click.
So he got to deal with all that good stuff, huh?
Oh my God. He fucked, dude. He fucked some people's feelings up. He fucked up their feelings so hard that they called and were like, we don't want to talk to your lawyer anymore. I'm like, too fucking bad.
All right.
Too bad.
Yeah.
You wouldn't let me talk. Right. I tried doing it without lawyers. Your lawyer sent me a fucking letter. I don't fucking read. I hired Dino. Yeah. Dino does the goddamn reading around here. Yeah. So Dino don't fucking play. That's what I'll say. There's your fucking tagline. Dino don't fucking play. There you go. That's how hyped up I am about lawyers. Like, no, like you should have a lawyer that you're fucking ready to like refer to everybody you know. Like, yeah, this guy, you don't fucking play.
On the show. Gladiator, man.
Dude, yeah. And then on the flip side, the next time you get approached with a contract, you're like, hey, how about we don't fight this time around? Dino, can you make it so I don't have to threaten to sue people?
That's when you get the fine bristle comb rather than the.
There you go. When I used to get twitchy, my threat was always, I'm gonna burn your business to the ground and piss on the ashes. That was like my go-to line when I was twitchy. I'm not twitchy anymore because I got a good lawyer and life is good, right? I'm calm now. This is calm, Andy. Could you imagine not calm, Andy?
Call so quick.
What's that?
I'm gonna make a phone call so quick.
Yeah, dude. I'm gonna threaten you so fucking hard. All right. Dino, what are you going to say about all that? I'll let you wrap it up. What final parting words of advice do you have for people like us in this junk removal dream that we're living?
Be cautious. I think, Casey, you used the word litigious. That's a good word to use. So everything.
Hold on, for the record. Casey can't spell litigious. He heard Eric say it like 3 weeks ago, and now he put it into his vocab.
Andy. I can spell. Hold on a second. Let me get my phone. I can spell litigious.
No, you can speak litigious. Casey was a grunt in the army. He can't spell litigious.
So, parting words, I would say, look, from the ground up, if you're starting with partners, make sure that you have your governing documents in order. So your partnership agreements in order, making sure that we understand the terms, the rules of what our partnership's going to look like, making sure that you have your insurance in place, but going deeper than just saying, okay, I have my insurance person who says I'm covered. Challenge them, make sure that you have the insurance that you need for going into whether it's commercial buildings or residential properties, that if you know what could happen, so you have to challenge your insurance agent to show you your policy that you are covered in these types of scenarios. Your hiring process, it's a difficult world right now to find labor. It's a real difficult world to find good labor. And I always say, like I just told our business client yesterday, accountability is a huge issue out there of, when you try to terminate an employee, it seems like they can never be at fault or at wrong. and deny it. So there's problems that could come from that. So you got the hiring process, making sure you're papering up things when there are issues with your employees, and making sure that you have the process on the back end too, that if you're a solo company and you're running your own thing, what happens to the company if something happens to you? Who steps into those shoes? Who takes over the company? Who's going to run it for the time? Maybe you have a medical issue that you're going to be on leave for, but having a plan in place. So thinking about all those things, like it's always good to strategize, to think through some stuff, not be so entrenched, as Andy says, like in that business moment, but looking at it from a big viewpoint.
Yeah, no, do appreciate that. Great parting words. Yeah, you touched on something, estate planning. No one wants to talk about their own mortality, but you got to have something in place. Something in place so that
Especially
you
if you
feel
have family.
good about where you're going. Absolutely. So, and that's the thing. I get excited. I love business. I love entrepreneurship. I love working with other people that run businesses. At the end of the day, right, we want to build this dream and this life that we want, but we also have to be very practical about what it looks like. So, Dino, I can't thank you enough for coming on, giving us your time and your words of wisdom. And I challenge everybody, all of our listeners out there, find the right board of advisors team for you. Have the team be your eyes and ears out there. Have them scale when you can scale, but don't get to a point where you grow a business, rudderless, where you're just going in a direction. Because I guarantee you that if you invest the time and energy with the right people and learn along the way with these strategic individuals, you will run your business differently because you're going to see the world differently. If you want to get out of the truck and have more of a business than just buying yourself a job, start to invest in yourself, start to invest in your business, getting a lawyer, CPA, banker, all those relationships on board early, contacting them often are going to put you in the right circles and with the right people, and mostly in the right mindset to grow, scale, and build your business. This has been another great episode. Casey, any parting words, final thoughts from this last episode of episode 35 of the Talks?
Man, I think you said it all. You got to understand if you're in there operating your business and you're looking at tomorrow instead of next year, then you're going to be limited. You got to look at next year. You got to look at the year after that, and the only way to do that is surround yourself with smarter people than yourself. You never want to be the smartest person in the room. Dino, thank you very much for coming on. It was awesome. It really was. You don't normally get the good content with attorneys and stuff like that, but this was actually really beneficial, I think. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dino. And with that, we're going to close out episode 35 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. We'll see you all next week.